Honorable members, when the House suspended its business at 1 p.m., we were debating the resolution for the transfer of land. I presume we are ready to continue. As many, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Kalani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to wait for a drink of water before that clock starts.
Oh, yes.
All this coffee, you know. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as usual, I have several documents that I would refer to. One from the World Bank that I would adopt on table, and another from the Tribune that, again, I will adopt on table at the end. Mr. Deputy, I entered public life with the objective of helping provide opportunity to Bahamians to get ahead in life. I was especially motivated to help those who came from common places and humble beginnings, as I did. I love our country and I love its people. It has always been my desire in public life to lift up as many of our people as possible. Our people are hardworking and they are industrious. If given a chance, Bahamians have the creativity and drive to make the most of an opportunity given. We are here today to approve this resolution to transfer land from the Accountant General to the Minister of Housing for a housing development. I support the effort to expand available housing for Bahamians. All governments should work to get as much land as possible under government control into the hands of Bahamians so they could develop it into homes or businesses. Successive administrations have tried various initiatives, with some programs more successful than others. However, a more robust effort is needed by us as legislators to bring more opportunity to more Bahamians much faster. Mr. Deputy, when it comes to housing development by the government, ideally, this is an area in which the governing side and opposition could agree. There is urgent need to create more affordable housing for Bahamians. In recent months, escalating prices have put extraordinary pressures on Bahamians of various class levels, from the poor to the working class and middle class. The problem is severe. On Tuesday, the World Bank noted, and I quote, "The war in Ukraine has dealt a major shock to commodity markets, altering global patterns of trade, production, and consumption in ways that will keep prices at historically high levels through the end of 2024, according to the bank's latest Commodity Markets Outlook report. The increase in energy prices over the past 2 years, that is, it went on, has been the largest since the 1973 oil crisis. Price increases for food commodities, of which Russia and Ukraine are large producers, and fertilizers, which rely on natural gas as a production input, have been the largest since 2008, end quote. The war, Mr. Deputy, is only one factor in the major inflation problem the world is facing. There are ongoing supply chain problems due to the ongoing pandemic. There are also other factors contributing to what now appears to be a major inflation problem that will last years. It is important that the government carefully considers its policies in these times when it comes to housing and other areas to ensure it is not making difficult times worse. Mr. Deputy, the World Bank's Vice President for Equitable Growth, Finance, and Institutions has noted, and I quote, overall, this amounts to the largest commodity shock we've experienced since the 1970s. As was the case then, the shock is being aggravated by a surge in restrictions in trade of food, fuel, and fertilizers. It went on, these developments have started to raise the specter of stagnation. Policymakers should take every opportunity to increase economic growth at home and avoid actions that will bring harm to the global economy, end quote. That line, Mr. Deputy, at the end is the key to guiding us as legislators in the Bahamas of these times. Avoid actions that will bring harm to the economy. We must avoid policies that do harm to the Bahamian people. While I support this resolution, I have no confidence that the New Day administration will get its housing scheme right. My view is guided by their colossal failure with their VAT policy. For example, the Bahamian people thought they would get lower prices with VAT being lowered to 10%. But what the now governing party was less clear on was that it intended to raise VAT on breadbasket items and medication. Essential items the poor and working classes rely on were once VAT-free. Now, there is a staggering new 10% on these essentials at a time of escalating global prices. The PLP's new policy made a bad situation worse. Bahamians are suffering day after day because of what that side has done. The middle class and the poor, especially as a result of these VAT 10% charges. And I'm certain the government would consider removing VAT of items that are most needed by the middle class and the poor, especially chicken, fish, fruits, vegetables, breakfast, cereals, real fruit juice, water, etc. And it can easily be paid by the additional 2% that was taken off, giving the rich benefit when it comes to purchase of real property, of land, those over $2 million. Mr. Deputy, when it comes to housing policy, there is a difference between the FNM view under my leadership and that of the governing side. Their primary focus when coming to power is getting their supporters straight with contracts, jobs, and perks. They are still making up jobs to get PLP straight. When it comes to housing, the governing party likes to give big deals to its contractors to develop government housing projects. Time after time, when the progressive liberal party is in power, there are scandals when it comes to housing. Unqualified supporters who cannot get the job done are given contracts. Houses take a long time to build. And Mr. Deputy, I refer back to 2007 when we came in. We had to spend the first 1 to 2 years, just budgeting $3 million just to repair homes that were constructed before we could even commence any. Many are not finished. Of those that are finished, quality work is often poor. There is consistently the problem under the administration of difficulty accounting for expenditure. Their side always have big talk at the beginning of a PLP housing initiative. And a few years later, the newspapers are filled with allegations and horror stories. We had a different policy view. It was our position at that time, Mr. Deputy, that the government should supply the land for state housing developments. Access to land is difficult in the Bahamas. Prices are extremely high and continues to rise. The recent buying spree during the pandemic has sent prices even higher. This spike has been driven by foreign buyers seeking safe places to park their money. Mr. Deputy, what we set out at Prospect Ridge was a model I stand by. The government has given all kinds of excuses as to why they did not go ahead with that project. The reasoning was ridiculous. It seems that they just did not want to complete a good project that was commenced by the F&M. We are making it easier for Bahamians to become homeowners. Our model at Prospect Ridge was for young professionals. However, the model could be used across the board. At Prospect Ridge, we proposed for young professionals to be able to buy land at a cost of $40,000 residential and $50,000 commercial. And we were prepared, based on the circumstances, to decrease those costs. This area is an upscale area. The facility would have had drains, parks, clubhouse, pool, preserved wetland, and preschool. We estimated at that time that the lots were valued at $150,000, which meant that individuals who would have purchased at $40,000 would have had $110,000 equity. Today, the estimation of that land is $200,000, meant that individuals purchasing at 40 would have $160,000 equity. This would have given young Bahamians extraordinary equity right away. The development was for first-time homeowners. The equity in the land could be used to secure a loan for construction, and the young people who secured lots would have been able to organize their own construction, and therefore the liability falls on the contractor, not the government. This is important, Mr. Deputy. Much of the upset, confusion, and money mix-ups in state housing projects happen at the construction phase. Our model was for Bahamians to find the builders they trusted after the government provided the land at an affordable price. Who a person wants to build his or her home and at what cost should be up to them. Under this government preferred policy, will potential homeowners be bound to have PLP contractors building their homes? We all know, and what will come from that. Under our Prospect Ridge proposal, which this government is not proceeding with, just over 1,500 applicants were received. Mr. Deputy, over 300 of those applicants had already received their letters of commitment from commercial banks for construction without having to come up with one red cent as down payment because of the equity. There were over 300 lots in such development. There was enthusiasm from the young people who applied. we were committed to ensuring that all who qualified would have received a lot in either the Prospect Ridge community or similar developments on New Providence, and we had identified 2 additional locations to proceed. Our administration was also committed to expanding this Young Professionals Land Program to Eleuthera, as lands were already identified in central Eleuthera, Exuma, Abaco, and Andros. We intended to ensure, and the Family Islands, Mr. Deputy, the lands were being sold at $5,000 to $10,000. We intended to ensure that those who bought land in these developments would not have to pay customs duties on building materials nor furniture and appliances. In other words, Mr. Deputy, they were given duty concession, no duties on stove, fridge, coffee makers, washer, dryers, etc., microwave, bedroom, dining room furnishing were free, were duty free. Additionally, they would not have had to pay real property tax for 5 years, with possibly extending to 10 years. Architectural plan was provided and designed by 3 separate groupings. And though the cost of architectural design is usually 10% of the housing construction cost, in these cases was $1,000 each. We were also exploring exempting buyers in these subdivisions from certain VAT provisions. We were also very advanced in the development of the Carmichael Village subdivision, and similar benefits would have been applied. Under the F&M's model, Mr. Deputy, lots are sold to Bahamians at great discounts, $20,000 commercial in Carmichael Village and $15,000 residential. Those were assessed at $80,000, and therefore they would have had over $60,000 in equity. Mr. Deputy, I want to inform the public that in the Carmichael Village, 74 individuals would have already received their letters of commitment from the banks. These were policemen, not known individuals, not known to us, defense force officers, teachers, doctors, others within the public sector, bankers, etc. 74. We have the names, and we will be watching to ensure that those individuals are fairly treated. The government makes infrastructure investments, and Bahamians then start with great equity. Under the PLP, Bahamians may be bound to certain contractors and developers. So-called low-cost homes under the PLP are not low-cost, because the low-cost home in the Bahamas are by far more expensive than those in Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, etc. And there is a stark difference between how our party tries to empower Bahamians and how their side works. If you do not like the quality of the work on your home under the PLP, if you do not like the pace of work, then you're stuck. They will not go against their supporters who have the building contracts. I believe, Mr. Deputy, the governing side will choose their contractors over the Bahamians. Mr. Deputy, I read with interest the prepared remarks yesterday of the member for Elizabeth, who is the Minister for Housing. She appeared defensive when it came to Pinecrest subdivision. Clearly, she's hearing some criticism of what is happening there. And I asked the question, were all proper approvals given before work began? I only say, when I ask questions, be certain that I know the answers. Has approval been given yet for the amended plans submitted? That is, the plans that are now in place. Is the contractor building from his or her own pocket, then selling to government? And if that's the case, at what cost? Will the supplies and materials be duty-free under the Affordable Home Act that we had introduced? And if so, will the concessions be given to the homeowner, or would that be a part of the contractor's profits? Will the property be reduced to the purchaser because the property is government's? And if the government is to purchase these homes and then sell to the homeowners, will the government subsequently take on the liability as opposed to our project where the contractors deal with the liability? The defensiveness of the member of Elizabeth's remarks made me concerned. Her party's record in housing across all their administration is very concerning. If everything is going well, why is the member so defensive? Who is criticizing what is happening at Pinecrest? What is the criticism? Mr. Deputy, I want to point out the homes in industrial. As I've said, the homes, low-income homes in the Bahamas are by far more expensive than other Caribbean territory. And the homes in industrial started at $167,000, going up, I think, to $190,000, and in other circumstances, more, depending on the size and the design. We thought that was a bit expensive, and subsequently had dropped the prices to $140,000, as opposed to the $170,000 or more individuals would have paid. And there were members who said that those who did not get the benefit, since the benefits were offered to the new homeowners, should probably petition. I wonder if that's still the position now. Before I end, Mr. Deputy, I want to raise a serious matter that concerns us all. This government has failed spectacularly in the crime fight since coming to office. There was a record amount of violence last month. Shootings and killings were near everyday occurrences. Most of the problem has been in New Providence. Bahamians are afraid. One of the main answers the government seems to have is giving a national security contract to Rodney Munker. Is Rodney Munker now a chief crime advisor? What are his salary and benefits and his qualifications and responsibilities? Bahamians are offended by his ridiculous appointment as a crime advisor. In a serious crisis, is this one of the best ideas the Prime Minister can come up with? As bad as the level of killings was last month, the PLP crime crisis now appears to be spreading. It is affecting our tourists too. A Nassau Guardian story on April 27th was titled, "Fernanda, Armed Robbers Recently Targeted Tourists." This story set out how our out-of-control crime problem is hitting the #1 sector of our economy. And the story read, Deputy Commissioner of Police Clayton Fernanda yesterday expressed concern over the impact of violent crime in the Bahamas on tourism industry, as he urged the public to cooperate with the police. He made the comments when asked about a recent advisory from the U.S. Embassy in Nassau, which cautioned U.S. residents about crime levels here in New Providence. Fernanda cited a recent incident at a golf course during which several tourists were robbed. Fernanda did not provide details about the incident, and we are very concerned, he said during a press conference. That is our bread and butter. Tourism is our bread and butter. So every right-thinking Bahamian should be very concerned about that. He went on, and if they know who the culprit is, with respect to that recent matter at the golf course, they should turn him in, and turn him in now, because that is our bread and butter. He went on, if the tourists stop coming, then we are finished. And we will not stand by and let a handful of individuals destroy our country, end quote. This recent escalation to the tourists could mean fewer and fewer people coming to our country. This would mean fewer jobs for Bahamians. It could mean less money circulating around the country. The Prime Minister's failure to lead on crime is threatening our entire economy. I am sure he does not want to advertise his failures and these crimes on billboards at various roundabouts all over New Providence. Bahamians are scared that in this time, this crisis time, one of the people the Prime Minister could think of to give guidance is Rodney Munker. No wonder things are drifting from bad to worse. Prime Minister's failing spectacularly. He has not been able to put together a coherent crime strategy. He has not been able to find the right advisors. The member for Freetown is the wrong person to be National Security Minister. Mr. Munker is the wrong man to give advice. The people, the government wants to help with this housing initiative, want to live in safe communities. They need the Prime Minister to do better. Seeing that the talk show duo of Freetown and Munker have failed to give the government good advice on crime, maybe the Prime Minister should turn to alternative voices in his party. He must try something different. It is early in this term. However, if the Prime Minister keeps on the course he's on, his legacy will be as a Prime Minister who allowed a worsening crime problem in the country to get even worse. Mr. Deputy, we believe each and every Bahamian is entitled to a house. The methodology and the approach and the method by the PLP is different from ours. Ours was providing the land to Bahamians. The land is theirs. We give the land to the Bahamians. The materials are duty-free. The equity in the land would allow them not to come up with any down payment. All materials coming in are duty-free. All furnishings, duty-free. No real property tax. Plans, minimal cost. And the liability, should anything happen to the home, falls on the contractor of their choice, as opposed to the liability falling on the Bahamian populace. Mr. Deputy, may God bless our Bahamas, and thank you very much. And I hope that we would have the arrangement that we've agreed to dispatched to the Speaker as soon as possible.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Order that the documents be brought up.
Yeah, that's the two. I didn't know political ploy says. That's not politics.
Order that the documents to lie on the table.
I was,
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fox Hill.
yeah, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged to my colleague, the member for South Abaco, but I got inspired. So I couldn't sit down. Yeah. He was in the class. He was in the class behind me. Yeah, right. But, you know, I was listening to this nice story and narrative. You going? I'm sure. Yeah. No, but the only problem is, the only problem, no, remember, his only problem was, right? He was listening to the PLP. He was listening to the PLP. And the PLP told him 8 months before the election, call the election. Call the election. And you call the election and you lost. You lost. You lost. You lost. You lost. That's what happened. You lost the election. You lost the election now. Come here with this old campaign and you lost the election. Who's, you know, you explained all of that before you called the election. The people of the country heard you loudly and clearly, but they didn't vote for you. They voted him out. And now he's come back with the same old story.
Are you saying leave you by yourself?
And then, and then the point is, and we had to do this right after he sat down. The thing is, I watched very carefully about this legacy. Not one of his members got up to defend him. Not one. Not one. They didn't say a single word.
He's an independent inspector, guys.
Yes, right. And you know, last I heard, he wasn't a building inspector. He was a gynecologist.
No, he's Inspector Gadget.
Huh? The former prime minister is a gynecologist, not an inspector of buildings. He inspects something else. You don't expect.
Say it. Your thoughts are uncomplimentary. Your thoughts are uncomplimentary. Say it.
Oh, Lord. I mean, I could really have a lot of fun with this now, you know. And then, wasn't it the record number of people, he's talking about crime, the record number of people killed in one day, 6 people in one day. That was on his watch. And they still haven't found out who did it. And you want to talk about crime? You know, you could get sanctimonious about crime and warnings by the U.S. Embassy. The hotels in the Bahamas at this point in time are full to the brim, overflowing. That didn't happen under his watch. Hotels were empty. The country was locked down. We told him that was a bad idea. Locked the country down. Took away our civil rights. And now he's suddenly concerned about VAT and the poor and crime. You ought to, I think it was the member of parliament for Southern Shores, was it? Who said you hang your head in shame. While you are at that funeral, sir, you need to shed some tears for yourself, for the wickedness and evil that you wrought upon this country. I mean, a disgrace. You know, at least former prime ministers, I thought, used to be quiet for at least a year or two and let their successor, you know, get his grounding and then make some comments. And then when you make comments, you're judicious in your comments, not personal in your attacks. But the prime minister is hiring Rodney Monker, and is this his best idea about crime? But Monker, I believe, will fix you up good when this program starts. And then about PLP contractors, the only thing that we are concerned about is whether contractors are qualified. Are they qualified? Are they Bahamians? Never ask anybody what their political party is to get a qualification. What I do know is there's a man with a very famous name connected with all the big projects of the Free National Movement over and over and over again. I know that. I know that. No, I just don't. See, I just don't want to be tempted. I just don't want to be tempted to call anyone's name because that person, he got it lawfully. He did it lawfully, as far as I know. So he's not the issue. The problem is the philosophy. You know, he was your boy, so you ensured that he got the big contracts. You know, big contracts, got them all. did well. And I hope he gave back to the party. I hope so. When I see him tonight, I can ask him. Say, how much you gave them during the campaign? How much? You know? How much? How much? And then the only issue again is, did the Progressive Liberal Party act lawfully? That's all. With all the things that we did, whatever accusation you are making, did we act lawfully? Is the minister acting lawfully now? All the minister came, pardon me, to the House today was to say, we want permission to transfer this land from the Accountant General to the Minister of Housing so we could do particular work. That's all. That's all. And we happen to have a philosophical difference between your housing program and our. We hear what your program is. The people of the Bahamas rejected that program. So we have our own program, which we promised to do. And the minister is carrying out the blueprint. That's what she's doing. That's it. You know, and then this business about, I mean, I just find it galling that their party, galling, you know, as in damn fool, you married a galling. But, you know, galling to have, you know, I heard a voice. I wouldn't demean myself by calling this fella's name in this place, right? But I heard a voice note of someone who just got out of jail. This is the second time he's been locked up for libeling someone intentionally. Just got out of jail. Thanking the former prime minister and thanking the former minister for immigration for getting him out of jail. And he's talking about who hired who? I mean, are you joking? Hypocrisy, double standard to get up here with this nonsense today, running on with this foolishness? And you think the Bahamian people don't see through that? As I said again, he has to be, when he looks in the mirror, the former prime minister, with due respect, the member of parliament for Kalani, when he looks in the mirror, has to ask himself, if the PLP was so bad, why did I listen to them and call the election? If they were so bad. But he listened to us. We say, call the election, man. Be mad. Call the election. Yeah, you got, don't wait 8 months. You got 8 months in your term. Don't wait. Call the election now, man. Be mad. Call the election. You know? And what do? Woke up one morning and says, yes, God, I'm going to call the election. You know? And guess what? He sank like a stone in the ocean. Lost big time. I heard one of his fellows say they didn't even know election was coming. They found out on TV. When they looked on the TV, there was the policeman standing on the steps reading the proclamation, say we go into election. They had no idea. No idea. 8 months. You know when the term was up? Let me remind you, those of you who are sitting on it. The term would have been up the 24th of May, 2022. You could have been sitting in the government. Blame that man. You lost your job. You lost your job, man, because he called election 8 months before he's supposed to do so.
At least one more paycheck.
Yeah, couple. Plenty. 8 more paychecks. 8 more paychecks. You know, policemen saluting you and, you know, sirens up and down the street for 8 months. And he gave all of that up, you know, to calling the election, listening to the PLP. And then he lost. Oh, boy. I don't understand this. Anyway, he's gone off to a funeral. God bless him. So the regime of this resolution is quite a simple one. And it is to pursue, or so that the philosophy which we have about this, and I was explaining before the session started, to the member for St. Barnabas about, or it may have been to one of my colleagues here on the benches, is that what I discovered in all of the years that I've been in public life is that the people who head households in this country are single women. Yes. Single women. They save their money. no matter how much they get paid, they save their money. And time again, I've run into, I know a lady who lives offside Hillside Park Road, the road which is just opposite Kingsway Academy. And she was saying how she had been living in this apartment, paying $800 a month for something like 20 years, but could not qualify to get a house. I mean, I don't understand how that's possible, because certainly $800 is pretty close to a mortgage payment. But the issue is always the down payment. And so it ought to be possible for people in those circumstances to get the house. And so I was just saying to the member for Pinewood that listening to the former Prime Minister, member for Kalani, saying how we had these houses in Adastra and the houses were 160-something thousand and how they had to reduce the price down to 140,000. But he just said the land belongs to the Bahamian people. That's what he just said. So presumably those houses belong to Bahamian people too. So the same way he used the logic to say he was going to give $150,000 of equity in this fanciful program that he produced just before elections, he could have decided to sell the houses to these same people for $40,000. You know, it didn't have to be $140,000. Since you say it's their land, you could have given the house away for $40,000 or sold it for $40,000. I mean, you got to really think about things before you start concocting these arguments, because you have to be rationally consistent, or at least that's what you're arguing. So what I'm saying is you have single women. They're the ones who run the houses here, take care of the children, who save, want a house, want to be able to live an independent life, invest in a house. And we found that in our relationship with dealing with them, that one of the reasons you have to have a turnkey solution is because contractors take advantage of single women. You talking stuff about you're going to have a service lot and you're going to set this lady to go and negotiate with these contractors to build a house. Are you joking? You know, first of all, they're going to want something else first before they start building the house, right? Oh, you know.
Down payment? That's a down payment?
You know. That's a down payment? But by the time you get past that, you know, and the charges start adding up, you know. Why you want to leave them to that device? So the government wants to have a turnkey solution. The government does all the negotiating, the inspection, make sure that the house is built properly, and say, here, madam, here's the key. That's it. And you get in the house. That's the best solution. And this applies also to the number of public servants. And usually the interactions that I've had are people who have regular incomes, Defense Force officers, police officers, civil servants, who've diligently saved their money and have the down payment and are now on a list pre-qualified by the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation or at the Department of Housing. And so there have to be special programs for them. And it should not be, again, them having to negotiate with a contractor. I listened carefully to what his argument was. He seemed suddenly concerned about whether or not, when something goes wrong, the liability is not going to be on the government. Well, I'm not concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is that the houses get delivered, the houses are built properly by qualified people. That's what I'm concerned about. And that we have a program which makes sure that there is an equitable outcome for people in the lower socioeconomic groups who, without a helping hand, would never be able to qualify for a home. That's what I'm concerned about. Whether or not I get sued by some lawyer afterwards because something happened, that's not a question for me. So what the former Prime Minister is arguing is that it's better for us, better for the government, that if something goes wrong, the liability falls on the contractor. Have you ever tried to sue a contractor in this country? You actually think you'll get recompense by suing a contractor? Never happened. It's not practical, not practical. So again, it is better for the liability to fall on the government. If anything goes wrong, that person who bought that house knows that the government stands behind the house, and that the government has done what is necessary for it to be qualified, and that you have a proper dwelling place. So that's the philosophy, and that's the difference between us in this matter, is we say turnkey solution, you say service lots. And I think with this service lots business, I think they had to probably drag, kicking and screaming, half of their members with them, because I know half of them didn't believe in that, because they knew that the issue is so complex that we would never get off the ground if you just go the service lot route. And again, a philosophical point which we've learned. This country has gone through the last 2 decades, F&M, PLP, F&M, PLP, F&M, PLP. It's been a disservice to the country, notwithstanding the voters have done it, and that's their democratic right, but we need stability in government. Yes. And that's why we're trying our best to argue for a second term right now, and trying to do the things that will set the basis for that. And one of them is this. We told the last administration when they came to office, and for the second time started canceling this and stopping that and reviewing this. He said, you know, the ship of state of the Bahamas is like those carnival ships in the ocean. You can't just put on the brakes and they stop, you know. You put on the brakes and it takes a while for them to stop. But you also know that when it's time to get it going again, it also takes a while to rev up the engine to start going. You've got 5 years. And our experience was that from the day you made a cabinet decision to the day you put the first shovel in the ground was 3 years. So if you come and you stop something and then say, I'm going to get it started again, what do you think is going to happen? By the time you can get that cranking again, election is right in front of you. So you can't be fooling with that. You have to do the best with what your predecessors left in place and keep it going. So the result is what for the Free National Movement? And they still voted for you. God bless them. But, you know, except out there in West Grand Bahama. But the government building ain't finished. Still sitting there, baking in the sun. The school isn't finished. Still sitting there. And these are the people who are concerned about the people in Grand Bahama. But unfinished projects. Because they stopped it. And then when, oh my, election's coming. Boy, we better get this cranked up, boy, because we need to get some projects. So what do? Say, what did they get? Some drawings. And you put a big things. They may even put it in the House of Assembly. You know, come here with a pointer and say, oh, this is what's going to happen, and this is going to be a wonderful thing, and we're going to give a land to professionals, and, you know, this is going to be our program, our housing program, and this is going to give $150,000 worth of equity to young professionals. Yeah, right. So, but this, you know, election coming and running out of time. And as I said, remind them, they, you know, when the program came, he had 10 months left. But after he did this program, the next thing we knew, the fella dissolved the parliament. Oh, yeah, listen to the PLP. We so dumb, you know. He say we ain't got no sense, right? But he listened to us. Call the election. Well, guess what? We smarter than you, because I think we won. We won, right? Yeah, we did. I pinched myself. We won. We won. We're right here, you know. And so we are doing the best we can to run a government which is built on the principles that we campaigned on, and trying to stick philosophically to what we are, which is we want to look out for the least of our brothers and sisters, because those who are better off are better equipped to take care of themselves. And I find the arguments about VAT, which have been introduced in here, I find them ingenious. I mean, you know, a man after my own heart, you know, stick to your guns and your story, because it reads well in the public, except that the facts don't bear it out. It's a rather, maybe you might call it circumlocution, very difficult argument. But those who advised us on this tax, we didn't advise ourselves, said, look, if you introduced all kinds of exemptions and this and that and all the rest of that, you are costing more for the administration of this tax to the public than if you simply leave this thing as a simple matter. It's a retrogressive tax in any event, but the country is not ready to go to income tax. So that's the best we could do. VAT is the best we can do in order to carry the expenses of the country. And it's an uncomfortable subject, tax is, right? And so by making it simpler, it's cheaper. And I know people don't accept that. Maybe it's a difficult argument to swallow, but the statistics, everything shows you that those are the facts. It is cheaper. Given a bad set of circumstances, that's the best thing to do, is to keep it simple. And it's cheaper for everyone. And so I was a bit surprised this morning when I saw the chief merchant, or the man of the largest supermarket, as you call him, this morning being quoted in the newspaper saying that he wanted this removed. Because I seem to remember him, that same gentleman, a couple months ago saying that he hopes that this is the last time when we did the reduction to 10%. And remember, we reduced it to 10%. He said he hopes this is the last time that anybody fools with this tax, because fooling with the tax back and forth, only causes complications and more expense. And yet, this morning, he's saying we should fool with the tax. We ought to change it again. So, which way is it? It's, as I said, it's a difficult process. Now, I think that there's plenty for you to jump on in government about what isn't going right, what isn't going this and that, rather than VAT. Because you know that if you come back to office, you ain't gonna do a thing about it. You ain't gonna do nothing about it. And well, I mean, we say that. Yes, right. And we also know their record is that they increased it. Yeah. Right? I remember when the announcement was made, their Minister of Finance didn't even tell them. So there was an audible gasp in the House of Assembly the day. I heard it on television when the man said, it's 12%, and everybody, they couldn't believe it. And they had, of course, all the tin soldiers had to line up behind it and say what a great thing it was, except a few people said no. And they suffered for it. They lost their job, a person of principle. That's why the member for Golden Isles is where he is now today, serving in the government, because he took a principled position. I'm not going to support it. It's wrong. And so that's why he is here today. So we can, nitpick about all of these things. But the serious point is, this is land which is being transferred. There's a similar thing which we did in Fox Hill when George Mackey was the Minister of Housing. Land owned by the Sugarman Estate in Fox Hill was acquired in 1990, and all of the land was given back to the people who were in actual occupation of the land. So the people who had been living as supposed squatters on the land were given good title to the land. That was done by last year, 2017. Those conveyances were given to people in that area. And the problems with title to land is an issue all around the place because of, first of all, the misuse of the Quieting of Titles Act. If people want to straighten out their titles, it is so expensive to do that one of the promises we made in the Fox Hill area is people who had been in actual occupation of the land beyond the prescription period, who could prove that what you would do is the powers of the government to publicly acquire the land, give the title back to those who were in actual occupation, and they got a clean title. Once they get a clean title, then that gives them the ability to utilize the land for their development and onward progress. So these are little things that we in the Progressive Liberal Party have been trying to do to make sure, as our former Deputy Prime Minister and Governor General said, and as quoted by the member for Elizabeth, to wipe every tear from every eye. It's a long journey, difficult journey, complicated journey, but we are trying to get it done. And the transfer of this land I believe will help. The minister is diligent and assiduous in her work with this, and you can tell, don't fool with her, because if you fool with her, it's like poking the bear. You can get what you're looking for. So that's all I say. Now, I worked with her for 4.5 years. I was looking forward to working with her for 5 years, but somebody called the election, and so I end up here. So, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, I hope our former Prime Minister sheds a tear for himself, because it's really sad that this is the best he could do to defend a bad legacy, when in fact what he ought to be is quiet. You know, silence in this time for him is golden. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
This is stable one? Thank you, Mr. Deputy, and good afternoon, yes. Bahamas. Mr. Deputy, as usual, I want to say thanks to Almighty God for allowing me to be above ground today and healthy and in the right frame of mind, I would think. I also want to thank the great constituents of Central Grand Bahama for sending me here for second, again, consecutive term to represent them. Prior to getting into the meat of my presentation.
Oh, you mean that?
Thank you. Yeah. We can continue? Continue?
Continue, member.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I thought. I want to announce the 10th edition of the world famous Central Grand Bahama Farmers Market. And I want to personally I've invited Fox Hill and the Ministry of Agriculture and BAIC, but I want to personally invite my friend and family member, I believe now, distant cousin, West Grand Bahama, to come out to the farmers market on the 14th of May. You look like handsome fellas, right? World famous Central Grand Bahama Farmers Market. And on the following day, the 15th, on the lawn of the Princess Hotel, Old Royal Oasis grounds, we're going to be having the first annual post-Mother's Day concert outside the world-famous Camelot Room. And the Camelot Room in Freeport is like the Apollo Theater in New York. And every Sunday in Freeport, there was a concert at the Camelot Room, whether it was the Cooling Waters or Sensational Nightingales or even Byron Lee. There's always something going on at the Camelot Room. So again, on the 15th of May at 4 o'clock, we're inviting all of the mothers in Central Grand Bahama and the Bahamas, if you want to come over and enjoy a time under the sky with us. It'll be an outdoor event, and that's going to be headlined again by the world famous Cooling Waters. You know, they'll be singing Thank God for Mama, but I'll be thanking God for the life of my mama, because it's my first Mother's Day without her. And I'll also be singing We Shall Be Changed. I'm sure that's going to be one of the hit songs that they will be singing on the City of God. So on May 15th, that's all right. Yes, I understand. Now to the resolution. Mr. Deputy, this resolution before us today again is a very critical piece of legislation, critical to the building of homes, a dwelling place, shelters for our people. I applaud the minister for having a very aggressive and ambitious agenda. I applaud the two programs she mentioned this morning, the Homes for Bahamians and the Home Sweet Home program initiative, I believe that's what it's called. However, I want my minister to succeed. I am, however, perplexed as we are here to pass a resolution to transfer land to the Ministry of Housing for subdivision development. Now, as an architect and a planner, this should have been the first step. you need the land first. You need to have full possession of the land before you can go on the land to do your fact-finding mission, to do your surveys, and in order to start your development. You must have the land in your possession first to develop it. If a client comes to me and say, I need you to design a house, do you own the land? No, I think we're buying it, or I might own it. No, if it's your land, I'm not gonna go on the land if you don't own it. So in essence, you're building on a land that we don't own yet. So it seemed like there was a little misstep there. A little misstep. You started, in my view, to work on land. And yeah, you may say, well, the land is owned by the government, but we all know, Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that have his own. And if it's even it's in the same compass of the Bahamas government, foreign affairs cannot go on sports land and build. Education cannot go on foreign affairs land and build. The land must be allocated properly, handed over to the various departments. So we are here today seeking a resolution to develop. We should first own the land, have possession of the title. And like I said earlier, I sincerely want the minister to succeed. I want to caution the minister and the team and remind him of the phrase, haste, make waste. Do not be so anxious to achieve great numbers and setting records. Be more focused on getting it done right. It is better to build one home right than to build 1,000 homes wrong. It is better to build one housing division right than 10 wrong for the sake of speed or setting a record. A home, as was indicated earlier, is the single largest investment that most people make. They want value for money. Let us not cause our mistake to cause them down the road, financially or otherwise. Now you may say, well, he coming on with this whole thing. I'm an architect and developer. I'm familiar with the built environment. And one of the things that the chaplain said this morning after his nuggets, he said, things that don't concern me, I can drink water and mind my business. That's a popular song. When it comes to medicine, I can drink water and mind my own business. When it comes to banking, I'll drink water and mind my own business. Come to any kind of thing that's outside of architecture, mind my business. But when it comes to architecture and development, that is my business. So I'm speaking also from a position of professional training. And I want you to take it in good faith. Because like I said, I want this project to succeed. Because when you succeed, the humans succeed. The Bahamas succeed. When designing, Mr. Deputy, when designing a subdivision, there are key things to consider. And of course, like we said earlier, land acquisition is key. As with any large and complex undertaking, bringing a housing development to life requires both a big picture, we talk about the big picture, not zooming in, but zooming out and looking at the big picture, and attention to detail. Housing development is usually described as having 4 major phases. The first is concept, land use study, having a land use plan. Whether this subdivision is going to be a linear design, it's going to be a radial design, it's going to be a nuclei or nucleus design. The second thing to know is pre-development. You do your pre-development studies, do your due diligence, research, get all of the permits in place. We asked earlier, are the permits available? Are they going to be tabled? The next phase is the construction aspect of the project. First, the horizontal construction, the substructure, the road networks, utilities, horizontal construction. And then we have the vertical construction or the superstructure. And fourth, lease up or the occupancy. And the minister mentioned the lease or the rent to own program, which again, we satisfy point number 4. And of course, ongoing operations and maintenance. Prior to purchasing or acquiring the site, certain criteria should be met. These site criteria can include whatever qualities are desired for a particular project. For example, Access to utilities. Is it available, or are we going to put them in? Public sewer system, or is there going to be a private sewer system with its own RO plant and sewer treatment facilities? Is water available to accommodate the preferred building types and also the number of units? Did we do density studies to determine how many units we can put in that subdivision based on the Town Planning Act? Proximity to an established residential area. Did we consult with the residents next door? See, location in areas that are environmentally sensitive. Is that where it's located? And again, this is information, this is not nitpicking, this is information that our homeowners and our developers need to know. And I'm not in there clowning today or trying to throw shades. This is my training. Closer to employees. Of course, I see it's close to shopping and the school is not too far down the road. The land that we are discussing today is unoccupied and on the market. And it's being asking for it to be transferred for a very exorbitant price of $10. We can afford that. Even though the land is unoccupied, questions ought to be asked. Why is it unoccupied and have been undeveloped for so long? Why is it sitting there for so long? Successive government overlooked. They didn't touch it. You see, we always talk in life about low-hanging fruits. Sometimes low-hanging fruits may be on the tree for a long time. They may be right there, no one pick it for various reasons. Those fruits may be damaged or tainted. And you know, when I go down to the beach and I go to pick cocoa plums or sea grapes, the sea grapes and the cocoa plums that is near to the ground, I ain't touching them. Can be damaged naturally or through tampering by humans or animals. See, this appears to be a low-hanging fruit. It's in our face. We should carefully examine what we are dealing with and wonder why, like I said, it was there for so long. Why didn't anyone else touch it? Maybe due to some defects that exist, or maybe it was just simply overlooked. We'll find out. A preliminary site assessment is extremely important. Things to consider should include site boundaries. We all talk about topography, identification of abutting properties and current uses, identification of anything that would indicate environmental issues. Have them highlighted. Access point to the site. Site utilities and existing utilities in abutting streets and current zoning. You need to know these things. For sites that do have wetlands or other setbacks, the buildable areas need to be determined. Now, 2 critical studies ought to have been done, and 3 types of surveys should have been done. And I'm thinking that a question was asked, were they done? The answer was yes, hoping that they will be laid. The first study is an EIA, an environmental impact assessment. It's an environmental decision support tool which provides information on the likely impact of development projects to those who take the decision as to whether the project should be authorized. The second one that we do not use often is called an EMP. And I'm sure the member from MICAL is familiar with it. Environmental Management Plan. That's a plan used as a guidance document to measure and achieve compliance with the environmental protection and mitigation requirements of a project. These are typically requirements for projects, permits, and approval. Well, Elizabeth said they were done. Our leader asked that they be laid. We believe you, but we just want to verify. They're the documents in this honorable house. That will give us a little more comfort that our people are getting the best bang for their bucks. If it's there, it's not a problem. And again, like I said, I'm not here nitpicking. This is a part of my training, and I want to know that I understand fully what it is that we're seeking to do. I mentioned 2 types of studies, and there are 3 types of surveys that ought to have been carried out. A boundary survey is number 1. A boundary survey is an important component of pre-construction due diligence. The boundary survey establishes the perimeter, what we often call the footprint of the site, as it relates to site's legal description. And the legal description is pointed out in this resolution that was tabled. It must be compliant with the Town Planning Act in reference to setbacks and buildable areas. And setbacks are very important. Deals with fire spread, right to light, emergency access, access for service vehicles. That's why you need a boundary survey, and you establish the buildable areas. The second one is a topographical survey. It locates all of the surface features of a property and depicts all natural features and elevations, the lay of the land. In essence, it is a 3-dimensional map showing slopes, runoffs, basins, and of course, foliage if necessary. And one of the things that Foxell spoke about yesterday, and it is one of the things that really irks me. When a client comes to me and said, hey, I want you to design a house for me or a project for me. I bought a land and I already cleared down. I want you to come have a look at the land. No, that is not the first thing to do. You do a proper topographical survey, and in fact, you tag trees that you can keep, that can become a part of your landscaping moving forward. Was this done? The topographical survey will allow you to establish benchmarks relative to the floodplain. And when we see videos floating around with flooding and so forth, did we do a proper topographical survey? What is the zero elevation? What is the benchmark that was used? Once that is determined, you now know how high you can put the floor grade. And one thing based on what I've seen, I'm hoping that the contractor or contractors, the qualified contractors, and I believe they are, will properly use proper methods of compaction. And if we were to raise a floor by 3 feet, it is not the proper thing to do, to put 4 feet of fill in the floor and you pack it down to 3 feet. At the end of the day, you're gonna have washouts, you're gonna have cavities. You do the compaction in layers. 6 inches at a time, compact it. Add another sandwich on top of that, compact it. So at the end of the day, you have very little settlement and you have no washouts, because based on what I'm hearing and seeing, looking at Google Maps, the flood level, the water table is very high. So you don't want to have any washout in those areas. Make sure the technical team do their work. The third and very important survey, it's called a Geotech Survey. And in certain conditions, in certain areas, it should be made mandatory that a Geotech Survey is done. This consists of gathering information about the physical characteristic of the soil and the rocks that make up the land. Determine if there are cavities, if there are any sinkholes in the area, if we have any muck, peat moss, or any other instability under the ground. We may have underground river. We have aquifers in Grand Bahama. I'll tell you of an experience I had at the National Stadium, the largest monolithic structure in this country. When I saw the design, preliminaries, did we do a geotech survey? No, but we need to do a geotech survey. Big pond is right there. We have water on both sides. We needed to do a geotech survey. Let's do some core testing. Let's do some sonar testing. Well, we did, bought in machines, bought some holes, did core testing. At 5 feet, solid rock. 10 feet, solid. 15, solid. At 20 feet, everything dropped down, almost into the bottomless pit. At 40 feet below the surface, we found solid strata. And the stadium that you're seeing now is not sitting on the ground that you're looking at. That is sitting 42 feet below. We had to put down 619 piles, 30 inches wide, in groups of 3s and 5s, put a pile cap on that, grade beams, and then we went vertical. It's very important. So when you have questionable sites that you're dealing with, have these surveys done. To ensure at the end of the day, you don't have settlements, you don't have sinkholes occurring, and that's not a hit on anyone. That is just information that we should have to ensure that at the end of the day, we end up with the best product. We have a lot of salvage conditions. And the good member from Michael, I keep referring to him, you know, we partnered on several projects. I'm the architect, he's the engineer. We know about demarking. We know about soil instability. Yes, and Pinewood, you know, your brother Adrian taught me drafting. So my first experience in architecture with Adrian Leroto and Leo Ferguson. Good guys. So again, I became a student of my profession. And I'm just admonishing the minister and the team to ensure that the technical team properly guide all of the boxes that we said checked. Let's check all of the boxes. We want to ensure that these homes are properly built, that the subdivision is properly laid out. Again, haste makes waste. Make sure that your mandate is to build not many homes, but good homes. I said earlier, it's better to build one good than to build 1,000 wrong. Make it a point to build good subdivisions as opposed to many subdivisions for the sake of breaking records. Understanding the fact that the Town Planning Act and the Bahamas Building Code was designed not for pretty subdivisions, not for beautiful buildings, but to make buildings safe, habitable, make it worthwhile. Having said that, I've never been long-winded. I just wanted to drop those technical points in there. Those questions remain on the floor. I would love to see the AIA. I'd love to see all of the substrata studies, the environmental impact assessment, environmental management plan. I would love to see it. And yes, the type of construction I'm hearing about this poured concrete structure. I've seen pictures of number 5 rebars in the vertical position. I haven't seen any pictures of stirrups. Maybe the stirrups are already covered up in the pictures that I've seen, because you need resistance in both directions. So the stirrups, I'm happy. And when you have those kind of construction, every 16 inches, there should be horizontal ties. Every 2 blocks, there's a horizontal tie to ensure that you have stability. No more than 16 inches. Because the thing to understand with concrete construction that we're using is that concrete is only strong from a compressive standpoint, only have compressive strength. There's no tensile strength in concrete at all. The steel is what allows it to deflect. It allows the building or the beam to deflect, give you a chance to get out of the building. If these things are not properly done, it snaps, pop, you're gone. So the combination of steel and concrete needs to be properly designed. And I would have loved to have here Michael talk, but I guess he will be presenting another time. But again, from a point of knowledge, or from a point of my professional training, I just want to ask those questions to ensure that we check those boxes, because it's very important, like I said earlier, not to be anxious to set records and build many homes, but to build good homes, build safe homes, build safe subdivisions for our people. Having said that, Central Grand Bahama, 7 minutes short, rest.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many,
Pardon?
the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Central and South Abaco.
Deputy Speaker, I stand here on behalf of the constituencies of Central and South Great Abaco. I am privileged to do so, and I am an Abaconian through and through. That's why I stand here today to speak for my people. Before we get into what I'm standing for is the housing resolution, I would like to speak on a couple matters that have come to mind, and I believe it's appropriate to lay them on the floor for the Bahamian people to hear. Last weekend, I was at a funeral in Cherokee Sound for Maria Bethel, Senator Michael Bethel's beloved wife. She had passed. And sitting in the church, it was conveyed a lot of good that she's done for her community and the lengths that she's gone to help not only the individual, but the community in a whole. And as I'm sitting there with two prime ministers, current and former, I'm realizing that that is something that we must express to our Bahamian people, is that it takes a village to raise a child. It takes more than an individual to do any particular thing that will last generations to come. And, you know, when we're faced with crime, we're faced with crime, you know, it comes to mind that we must be our brother's keepers. Deputy Speaker, crime doesn't happen overnight. Crime takes a lot of time, and it's spurred by particular events, like locking down your people. Hungry people do drastic things. Children that don't believe they have a future do drastic things. These are some of the, you know, the onsets of what we're dealing with today. So when I hear about crime and you start pointing fingers at the current administration, it just doesn't work like that. And it's not the narrative that should be cast. Narrative should be cast is let's help thy neighbor. Let's educate thy youth. Let's give them opportunities. Let's feed them, show them how to fish. Don't give them a fish, but show them how to fish so they could feed themselves for some time to come. Yes, Deputy Speaker, these are things that have come to, you know, realization when hearing about, you know, crime in particular. You know, I don't want to sit on that for too long, but it's important. We got to be our brother's keepers. Speaking about Moores Island, we had BTVI down there and had almost 24 training for a skill set that they'll be needing in upcoming years when their representative brings the tourism product down to Moores Island and revolutionizes another area in the Bahamas to be an economic impact, not only in Abaco, but for the Bahamas in a whole. And helping with the basketball court down there, Moores Island had their first competition. It was an Abaco competition. We had teams from all over Abaco come there and participate. You know, we're getting kids involved in sports, involved in activities, involved in the community. Deputy Speaker, this is important. This all relates to the onset of crime. You know, we need to give our youth and give our people a future. That's what I believe the PLP is doing. This blueprint for change is real. So to move a bit away from that, carbon tax credits. You know, that is revolutionary. You know, as the PM was speaking at the crypto conference and speaking about the pirate republic and the democracy that piracy really was, that the equality of people on those boats, the election of those captains, and there was no slave. There was people all on one playing field and leveled. That was revolutionary. That was before its time, before the French Revolution, before all these revolutions that spurred democracy in the world in a whole. Deputy Speaker, things like carbon credits and the crypto space and DeFi, these are all revolutionary events that we must take hold of, nurture, and take the Bahamas to the next level.
Yes.
It's not something that we should shy away from. It's not something we should think too long on. We don't want to be behind the world in acting upon these things. Indecision is the wrong decision. I'm a big proponent of these spaces and how you revolutionize things. Index trading in 20 odd years ago was seen as the same, seen in the same way. The big finance people didn't know what it was. Index trading, what is this? Now you got Vanguard with trillions of dollars under management for index trading. This is the beginning of something great, and I commend all those in government that are working on this, and I support that. I'd be remiss without bringing up the regatta and sailing. I'm a sailor myself. Been doing it since I was a kid. It's particularly sloop sailing, but I sail with anything with a sail. Fiberglass, wood, one hull, two hull, doesn't matter to me. But it's important to bring our culture to light, not only for us Bahamians, but as a incentive for a greater tourism product. We need to highlight what we are. Junk canoe, sloop sailing, our craft. These are all things that will make the Bahamas revolutionary evolve to the next step in our evolution. The Bahamas is a young country. We're looking at 50 years next year. We are going to be at the cusp of the breaking of the cutting edge on a lot of different things. Deputy Speaker, we must hold on to our culture, must highlight our culture, and make sure we don't forget who we are. There's a lot of talk about this VAT this and VAT that. I remember when VAT came into play, thought it was a good idea. We must have some way to pay the bills, infrastructure, so on and so forth. VAT was made for almost a flat tax-like thing. It's supposed to be straight across the board. Deputy Speaker, when it gets too complicated, that's when it comes too costly for the government to actually initiate such tax. What really hurt me was when it went up 60%. Again, another time that our people were hurting. 60% on top. That was a lot. That hurt a lot. That put a lot of people out of their house. Made a lot of people think about whether they needed 3 meals a day. That's hurtful. The Davis-led administration laid out some real plans to bring the Bahamas to the next level. So immediately we dropped it 16.5%, bam, right off the bat. Even in a financial crisis as we were. We're laying out the groundwork to help our people. It's not that we're picking and choosing. We have a plan. And when I hear the other side keep speaking about VAT, reminds me of my marketing class and how they get messages out. They repeat it over and over and over again. So you see Coca-Cola, they repeat something over and over again. You just see Disney repeating things over and over again. So they're repeating the same thing over and over again to try to change the narrative and change what people are speaking about. They should be speaking about is the good that this administration is doing in such short time. We're serious about helping our people. This brings me to housing. I'd say Central and South Abaco, supports the housing initiatives that the Minister of Housing has brought forth. All of them. We were devastated in Hurricane Dorian. And the couple little things that the previous administration did, when they speak about reaching out to the community, when they speak about proper planning, when they speak about things that they were doing, it brings to mind things that I see on the ground right now. I see the misplacement of the domes right in front of Spring City with the lids not even on the cesspits. So when it rains too hard, the sewage comes up and the kids play out in the streets. I see a debris management site right across from Spring City that the toxic smells and others are just blowing over, causing respiratory problems. Those with asthma making it that much worse. There was no consultation with the appropriate Abaconians to say where these places should go. Because I'm sure they wouldn't have said right across the street from where we all live. No, man, Abaco has plenty of land. Deputy Speaker, Abaco is blessed with a lot of land. You didn't have to put it right across the street. So when they speak about planning and consultation and things like this, it's frustrating, because it's like they've had an epiphany. It's like they've just thought about this now, when they should have thought it from the beginning. There's a hurricane shelter in Central Pines that, remember a couple of years ago, them saying $1.8 million will be done by May 2021. Well, almost $900,000 into it. There's not even a foundation finished. And they said 800 people could go in this shelter. If you could fit 80 standing up, that would be a feat. There was no planning. These are things that just now they're speaking about, when they should have thought through before. The money wasted. I could go on for an hour about the money wasted. It's frustrating knowing what I know now.
Bad memories.
It's frustrating knowing what I know now. Deputy Speaker, I only stand here today for my fellow Abaconians and Bahamians in a whole. It is time we did the right thing. Yes, governance is continuance, but it reminds me of something someone told me. It's like when we were elected, we grabbed a cart going downhill that was out of control. That was a problem. First, you got to get on the cart, then you got to get it under control, and then you have to start steering it the right way. But when we're left with such immense problems and lack of planning, lack of consultation with the majority of the Bahamas, we have a lot of work at hand. Deputy Speaker, it's important to point out that although we are being reactive on a lot of things that were already done, and governance is continuous. So we have to bear the brunt on some issues, change some issues, amend some issues. But you can see that this administration is being proactive for the future. We're looking at food security. BTVI and BAIC, they're doing great things. The Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, and Agriculture, Marine Resources, and Family and Affairs, I commend him. I see him doing great things. As for the preservation of the Bahamas in a whole, the inflation of food prices, they were not that just didn't happen. COVID COVID was a big thing, a pandemic worldwide. And then it was compounded by a war across the world that we had nothing to do with. This is something that not just this country, but many countries are dealing with. But we were proactive from the break. Before the war started, 16.5% reduction in VAT. That was real.
That's right.
That's real. You know, these are a lot of ways that we're helping our people. Let me get back to housing. You know, the honorable member from Killarney was speaking about some kind of professional lots or something in Abaco. I'm confused because nobody knows about it. I don't know about it. The Abaconians don't know about it. The 5 houses that they did try to build are still shells sitting in Central Pines. And I wouldn't, and that's a financial figure that I do not want to know, because that'll just compound on the frustration of mismanagement from the previous administration. When they stand up and say, again, epiphanies about how we're supposed to plan, how we're supposed to consult, how we're supposed to do these things, it's tiresome. And then when you have the honorable member from St. Barnabas, you know, must be a marketing major, speaking about the same thing over and over and over again. We should be working together.
Yeah, the chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
You know, the member can make light of the fact that as a member of parliament, I come in here to speak on behalf of the people who are hurting. I repeat it because the people are hurting. Now, if you don't experience, if he isn't experiencing what the people are talking about, that's what I come in here and talk about. What's important to the Bahamian people. They may not like that the people are talking that VAT needs to come off bread basket items. He may use it as a marketing. He may see it as the honorable member may see it as a marketing ploy. At the end of the day, I'm speaking on behalf of the Bahamian people who are hurting. So they can make light of this all they want. At the end of the day, the Bahamian people are watching. Member for Agneston always said this, the Bahamian people are watching and they are hurting. So don't make light of the fact that Bahamians are hurting. Thank you.
Thank you, member.
Deputy Speaker, I never make light. True with my words. You know, I didn't come here because I wanted to be a politician. I came here because I want to help my Abaconians, my Bahamians, and the future generations of this country. So it's serious. You know, these are serious matters. If we can give a little bit of assistance to the next generations, a Latin phrase comes to mind: Sic parvis magna. I mean, greatness from small beginnings. You know, anybody in this country can be great given the right opportunity. Deputy Speaker, I don't speak very long. I'm usually straight to the point, and I'll be straight to the point. I want Central and South Abaco 100% supports the honorable member from Elizabeth, the Minister of Transport and Housing, on her affordable housing initiatives. I support what the resolution at hand to move the land from the Accounting General to the Ministry of Housing for such acts. You know, it puts a smile on my face when she speaks about rent-to-own programs. You know, you've heard it a few times in here. Yep. Deputy Speaker, not everybody has tens and tens of thousands of dollars to put down for a down payment. That's right. The banks don't make it easy. You know, a lot of times Bahamians are going uphill both ways into the wind. You know, without a paddle. You know, it's hard when you may not have everybody in the family working, and family members are helping each other survive. You may have 3 and 4 people in a 1-bedroom. You know, these are hard things. And when the Ministry of Housing is thinking about rent-to-own programs, that's revolutionary.
Yes.
So without going on too long, Deputy Speaker, I would just like to say that Central and South Alberco supports the resolution, the bill, and you know, it is. You have to be mindful that our people are hurting, and you have to be mindful that it's going to take time to come out of the hole that we're in today. God bless the Commonwealth of Bahamas, and God bless this great house, this Parliament.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Carmichael. You see?
Fix this properly. You're jumping now. This a big Bible.
May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O God, thy strength and my Redeemer. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I rise today on behalf of the great people of the constituency of Carmichael to support this important resolution, which is yet another tangible manifestation of our promise of a new day. In lending my support to this resolution, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to express my thanks to Almighty God for his continued blessings on me and small mercies that I see every day. My blessings are my dear wife, Clara, my boys, my dear mother, Patricia Eva Penniman Bell, my father-in-law, Frederick Chicken Taylor, who's watching me, and of course, my wider family. Yeah, oh yes, yeah. Mr. Deputy Speaker, another such blessing is the opportunity to serve the great people of the Carmichael constituency with the Honorable Prime Minister and my colleagues. Each hour, each moment, each day, our focus remains the delivery of a new day. And for that, I wish to thank my fine team down there in Carmichael, who, I mean, is simply second to none. I thank you for everything that you do for me, and you continue to uplift me and make me very proud. God bless each of you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, before I get into the crux of my presentation today, I want to just echo and support what has been stated by the former speaker, that when we come in this place and we rise to our feet to debate, the important issue for us has to be one of relevance to what is actually being debated for several reasons. First of all, the Bahamian people are watching us. Secondly, as a student of R.M. Bailey and of course, the University of the Bahamas, formerly the College of the Bahamas, when I had to do research and I had to come down to the Hansard to do research, and I'm looking through speeches to try and get an understanding as to what went into the reasoning for the passage of legislation. It was painstaking for me when, for example, we're debating a resolution, and I had to now wade through all of that repetition and matters which had nothing to do with the debate. And in this particular context today, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we've talked about groceries, we talked about VAT, we spoke about crime, all of these different things, Mr. Speaker. And I want to make reference to the House rules. I didn't rise on a point of order when the other side drove us into this discussion and this debate. But I remind you, Section 88.2 states, the Speaker in the House or the Chairman in committee, after having called the attention of the House or committee to the conduct of a member who persists in irrelevance or in tedious repetition, either of his own arguments or of the arguments used by other members in debate, may direct the member to discontinue his speech and resume his seat. Now, this, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is very clear. I therefore now turn to the resolution at hand. Some 7 months ago, my cabinet colleagues and I began this journey of restoring and improving our beloved country. The Honorable Prime Minister made it clear to all of us that our term would be result-driven. Our directive has been and remains get it done. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now turn to our blueprint for change, and I invite the Bahamian people to hold us to what we settled in our blueprint for change. Let's look to the resolution. Mr. Deputy Speaker, at page 33.4, it talks about homes for Bahamians, and I read into the record, we are committed to housing as a basic right and will increase access to affordable homes by creating new initiatives, including Homes for Bahamians and Rent-to-Own program. Secondly, the Ministry of Housing will return to building houses for Bahamians by incentivizing local contractors. Thirdly, the granting of Crown land will be included in this program, especially in the Family Islands. And fourthly, pursue public-private partnerships to develop new subdivisions. This is what is contained in our blueprint for change, and this is what the Honorable Minister of Housing is doing. With results being the focus, efficiency is the new order of the day. The elimination of unnecessary bureaucracy and delay has and will continue to be eliminated. Obstructionists, and delay must not and will not impede progress. Today, I am proud to support this resolution, which follows the acceptance of the Prime Minister's directive to get it done. In 7 short months, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This PLP housing minister has done more to deliver more homes than her predecessors over the 4 years. Unfortunately, the glaring failure of the former administration's ad hoc housing policies have sent them into overdrive, seeking to find something, anything, to hide the fact that they simply failed to deliver what they promised. As I listened to them speak today, Mr. Deputy Speaker, they made it very clear that the philosophy and the position of that administration is different from that of the Progressive Liberal Party, and I am glad that it is. And I'm going to point to the facts and educate the Bahamian people on this, why we are sitting on this side of the table today. Today's resolution seeks to approve the transfer of 2 parcels of land totaling 35.44 acres in southern New Providence. The land is in a desirable, stable community near public services and the Street South Police Station. I am advised that the land is being used in the first instance to deliver 47 single home sites with a minimum of 6,000 square feet. The additional land will be used for approximately 100 home sites, with the tract having approximately 150 lots when built out. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in my professional life, I have worked extensively in land development and construction. At the start of my work in that field, I was presented with a book. This book, which I regard as the authority on housing in the Bahamas, and I wish to table it. It is a report prepared by the Progressive Liberals Party Minister of Housing, the now Right Honorable Hubert A. Ingram. As you can see from the thickness, it is quite extensive and makes for sobering reading. So when I heard on the earlier today, when the other side indicated that, let me just quote him right, we are not sure which way to go as it relates to home ownership, I invite you to read the book.
And I've read it.
We are often criticized, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for not documenting enough of our history. And unfortunately, former Prime Minister Ingram's role in the development of affordable housing is often overlooked. I tabled the report with the hope that it helps with its distribution, as this is an area of critical importance to the growth and stability to this country. And I just want to turn to the table of contents and just read into the record what all the table of contents entails. It talks about population and households, existing housing stock, housing production, land, planning and services, construction industry, incomes and affordability, housing finance, government role in housing, housing requirements, housing needs, responses required, and of course, the government's response. And I will refer to this as I make my brief presentation. This document was done in April of 1984, 38 years ago, and it is a comprehensive overview of the challenges and possible solutions to the housing issues in the Bahamas. It remains instructive to this very day. On page 131 of the report, it states, estimates of completion since mid-1990 at the time of the census shows that 3,000 housing units have been completed, or 950 units for each whole year of the 3.5-year period. As the requirements for the 1,750 units per year, the country's performance so far has been at a level of 54% of what is needed. This is not encouraging, since the performance is weakest on New Providence. If it is to be assumed that the shortfall of the 80s were to be made up over the 6.5 years balance of the decade, the annual requirement from now on would increase to 2,178 units with 1,687 houses in New Providence. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is the Minister of Housing speaking in 1984. The question for us as legislators and policymakers is what happened. 2,178 units per year. What are the long-term consequences of decades of us failing to build sufficient homes? Mr. Deputy Speaker, here is a copy of the Central Bank's Statistical Digest, which I will also table. The digest is an invaluable resource for economic data. If you look at table 8.0, which outlines construction completions, it shows that between 2012 and 2020, the largest number of residential buildings constructed in the Bahamas is given 620 in 1 year. In one instance, it was suggested that over 2,000 new housing units are required a year, whilst the record shows that we average about a quarter of that number. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this means that each year a bad situation gets worse and that much more is required to make up for lost time. And let me say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what is very significant here is the philosophy or the position of the Progressive Liberal Party and that of the Free National Movement in terms of how we approach home ownership, construction, and ensuring that Bahamians get homes. The Ingram report goes on to summarize the housing needs and necessities in the Bahamas, and I would like to highlight some of the following. There is a need to produce more housing. Housing construction has fallen behind household growth. If production is not increased significantly, housing conditions will deteriorate further. There is a need to produce more affordable housing. Given the incomes of Bahamians, there is an urgent need to provide modest home for lower income families. Such housing can be produced at acceptable levels. There is a need to recognize the means through which ownership and rental housing for lower income families can be produced. Such means include different and smaller housing types. And this is what, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Minister is talking about. Higher densities and smaller lots. Basic infrastructure, reduced house amenities and finishes. There is a need to recognize and accept the low-income house on the part of the builders, housing industry professionals, as well as the public. Education at all levels is required to put this message across. There is a need to recognize housing needs in all parts of the Bahamas. Whilst the greatest pressure is in New Providence, followed by Grand Bahama, the family islands must also receive the attention they deserve. This is what was written way back in 1984. There is a need to recognize that, in accordance with the political and economic philosophy of the Bahamas, a significant part of the response to housing needs must primarily come from the private sector. There is a need for the residential construction industry to become more productive. Firms must organize and manage themselves more efficiently and insist on quality workmanship. Contractors should acquaint themselves with modern technologies of house production and business management and should provide opportunities for on-the-job training. In this, the government should assist the industry. There is a need for the government to allocate government-initiated houses for sale to those most in need. There is a need for the government to provide leadership in coming to grips with both basic housing needs to show the way so that the private sector individuals and firms can follow. Fast forward, Mr. Deputy Speaker, now to 2018 under the administration of the Honorable Member for Kalani. After decades of each government, PLP and FNM adopting the position that providing affordable housing was an essential component of building our country, overnight, it was decided that the Ministry of Housing would not deliver housing. Would not deliver housing. Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was really quite shocking, more so because in his 2017 budget communication, and I have that to table, the Honorable Member, the former Minister of Housing, stated, the Department of Housing will complete 300 homes in the Carmichael subdivision. $2 million will be extended to cover the cost of the same development. This will be done under the government-private venture initiative. Using the same arrangement, 72 homes will be completed in West Carmichael subdivision. This is his 2018 report. Mr. Deputy Speaker, under the former administration, 300 plus 72 equals 0. Because that is what those waiting for those homes that the Honorable Minister, the former Prime Minister indicated that letters of comfort were given. 0. Nothing was done, nothing was built. I believe the Ingram report remains sound and valuable advice. There is a need for government to allocate government-initiated houses for sale to those most in need in accordance with established selection criteria. Houses, honorable members, not lots, not dreams, but houses, and to the most in need. Not gated subdivisions, not pool houses, and communities restricted to the select upper echelons of society, those most in need. Yes. I do not wish to get into how the other side made decisions, but I wonder, with former Prime Minister Ingram being such a valuable resource, having authored this report, did they consult him before announcing that the Department of Housing has been directed to cease the business of building houses? But yet, the opposition today dare get up and tell us, and have so much to say about building houses. This is what is significant, Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the press release dated the 9th of May 2018 by BIS, the former Prime Minister, the Honorable Member Kalani, stated, the Department of Housing has been directed to cease the business of building houses. It's here, black and white. So, for the likes of me, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it behooves me how the former administration dare, or the members opposite, dare say to us, this administration, in this initiative, in this resolution, in this honorable place, dare seek to underscore the construction of homes for persons most in need. All the irony, all the broken promises. 2017, they promised 372 homes by 2018. 2018, like magic, the promise disappeared. They came in on a trust agenda. Don't forget. Where's the trust? Where did it go? Mr. Deputy Speaker, it couldn't have been the people's time. Behind each home, and this is what is significant here, Mr. Deputy Speaker, behind each home is a family. Behind each home is a family. And so when the honorable member of St. Barnabas gets up and speaks about the poor people, each time we failed, we as a government collectively failed to carry out our mandate to deliver affordable homes. We are failing a family. A family, Mr. Deputy Speaker, whose life would have improved and been made so much better, as the honorable member of Angleston always tells us, had we done and delivered on what we promised. Mr. Deputy Speaker, persons familiar with construction and the construction industry knew that this was a huge mistake. The construction of a home is a highly technical process which is filled with risks. And this is where the honorable member for Fox Hill, he had it right there. He's telling you, you taken away now, and to listen to the honorable member of Skalani State, that we're gonna tell the people choose their own contractors.
Wow.
We know as a former officer in commercial crime, that thousands of people who have lost millions of dollars, and they are powerless to get their money back. And that is all of their life's earnings. We cannot go down that path. We cannot do it, and it cannot happen again. The concept of leaving homeowners to fend for themselves as they figure out how to build a house was a simply bad policy move. I suspect this is why every single administration today saw the necessity to deliver affordable turnkey homes to Bahamians, all except one administration. I say perhaps because in July 2021, the former administration, having declared that they were no longer building homes and having abandoned the construction of homes, began frantically looking for a private sector partner to build homes on the eve of the general election. Mr. Deputy Speaker, today, they may say all manner of things to distract Bahamians from their uncomfortable truth. Red herrings to distract from their failure to deliver homes they promised. They failed. They sought to destroy and eliminate the core function of the Ministry of Housing, delivering homes. But thank God for the promise of a new day. It's a new day in the Ministry of Housing.
That's right.
It's a new day in the construction industry. The Ingram's report statement that there is a need for the residential construction industry to become more productive is now a reality. Firms must organize and manage themselves more efficiently and insist on quality workmanship. Contractors should acquaint themselves with modern techniques of house production, and business management remains true today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I was shocked at attacks from some on the other side concerning the approved system being used. I too went out to the site, and what I saw was the highest quality homes ever built under any government initiative that I have seen. I saw engineers and multiple inspectors all over the site, supervising every aspect of the construction, and I didn't go up on no ladder. I saw the concrete being pumped into the walls filled with rebar, which creates a solid structure. And also too, Mr. Deputy Speaker, when you put the concrete in the blocks, it acts as a good sound barrier. So when this is only talking about strength and construction, it also helps with the noise from the outside. It's powerful, privacy. In my time around construction, I do not know of any project which has been subject to such intensive program of inspection and scrutiny. I even understand that members opposite had their own inspection program for the homes, although I personally would rely on the official inspectors and engineers. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I saw that the land was solid with parts of it having hills. I saw a nearby lot being sold on open market for $68,000. I saw a well-maintained established community. What I saw bore resemblance of no curving walls or submerged land claimed by the politically orchestrated smear campaigns. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the need for shelter is a basic fundamental human right. Like food and water, we must have a place to live. Over the years, we have failed to construct sufficient homes, and now we must catch up. Catching up requires us to build homes that we can touch, we can feel, we can see, and we can live in, not dreams, not schematic plans, not promises, but homes. This catch-up is not easy. It requires strong government policies and personal accountability. I am very pleased of the choice of the Honorable Prime Minister to appoint someone to lead this charge as outlined in our blueprint for change. Someone who is bold, someone who is deliberate, someone who is smart, and someone who is determined. The Honorable Jobeth Colby Davis. The Honorable Member for Elizabeth. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the unfortunate reality is that over the past decades, Bahamians have borrowed hundreds of millions of dollars in unsecured loans at high interest. From my time in the private sector, I was and remain shocked at the number of Bahamians owing in excess of $50,000 in consumer debt to various lenders. These loans consume more than 50% of borrowers' salaries by salary deduction, leaving hardly anything for mortgages. At times, leaving nothing to live on. Indeed, in my experience, consumer loans are the #1 reason why gainfully employed persons are unable to afford homes. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this Davis-led administration will continue to do all it can to deliver more and more homes. For the part of the citizenry, you must prepare yourself. Savings must become a priority. Spending must be controlled, and loans must be kept to a minimum. I understand that life is filled with challenges. However, borrowing for non-essential items will reduce or eliminate your ability to obtain a mortgage. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this government supports Bahamian ownership and the construction sector. The construction professions and inspectors at the Ministry of Housing and the Ministry of Works can rest assured that this administration has no plans of shelving their talents. They are trained to deliver affordable homes, qualified to deliver affordable homes, and this government will deliver affordable homes. Carmichael supports this resolution and does so with the hope and expectation that this is the first of many more projects to deliver more affordable homes to Bahamians. Mr. Deputy Speaker, what a difference a new day can make. 7 months, just 7 months. As Bahamians listen to the other side, just remember their record on housing, 0. The proof, still, ladies and gentlemen, still lies in the pudding. I wish the Honorable Minister of Housing and a team of professionals every success in delivering homes to the Bahamian people. I will encourage the Honorable Member of Elizabeth here, as I have done privately, to press on, remain steadfast and immovable, for as long as you know your work is in the Lord, your labor shall not be in vain. This is a noble endeavor that impacts lives and communities. May God continue, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and in particular, all those people and families whose lives will be touched and improved by this initiative. Carmichael supports this resolution.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Take it, sorry.
Order that the documents be brought up. All right. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Just wanted to just make a quick point. Notwithstanding the point that's been made, it was made by the member for Fox Hill and the member for Carmichael, notwithstanding their point about some bad actors. Obviously, contractors in the country are not one monolithic group, and there are a lot of hard-working, honest contractors out there. And I just think it's important to state that point, notwithstanding the concern about those who would attempt to take advantage of other behemoths. I just wanted to make that point, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, honorable member. Order that the documents to lie on the table. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Elizabeth.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I just want to wrap up. First, I want to thank all of my colleagues that contributed to the debate and support of the resolution, and the side opposite. Thank you, some of you. No, thank you all. Thank you all for your contributions. What I would say is it has been a pleasure to be a first-time member in the House of Assembly and be a part of a team that surely, truly live, speak, and showcase what teamwork means, and support, and not only on display here for the House for contributions, but how we've been working together over the last 7 months. All of what we are all achieving in our ministries is just because we actually are working together as a team to build the Bahamas, and I think that's commendable. So thank you all. Once again, it's important for us to do all that we can in the time that we've been given to make a difference. And that's what my focus is, making a difference where I can. It isn't to say I am the better one or I am the best. It is just so that I can have persons who, children grow up in homes that I was a part of a government that built, and they grow to share their story. My parents were recipients of Elizabeth Estates, a home in Elizabeth Estates. I was 2 years old when they moved into their home. To this day, that story is still the biggest, the loudest, and the proudest story that my parents share, becoming a homeowner for them. They were under the age of 30 when Pinlin brought that program. They were married, they had 3 kids, and on their way for the fourth one, my sister, the last one. And I was 2 years old, and they were excited about what that meant for them. That transformed even how they performed in their financial life, how they were able to save and work and be responsible and build themselves to the point where they now proudly brag of having a daughter that sits in the cabinet of the Bahamas and stands now as the Minister of Housing. And that's where the passion comes from, because I'm sharing a story because I know the system of turnkey, how it works, how the system of turnkey transformed my parents' life and in turn transformed the lives of me and my siblings. That's why I'm so dedicated to making sure this works. I don't want to be a part of a government that have persons crying and complaining about faulty this and faulty. No, this is important to me because it's personal. It is personal what it does to the lives of Bahamian, and I'm a testament to it. Under the Pinlin administration, the same minister, the book you talked about, I read that. because I know how important it is when you become a homeowner, what that does for persons. And so, yes, I heard all of the, did you get this, did you get that? I told y'all from day one, the one thing I can brag about is the public servants that work with me in the Department of Housing and the public servants that work in the Ministry of Works and all of the qualified persons that work along with our private developer and the students at BTVI that is also attached to this team and that are learning new systems of building. It's an exciting project, and everyone has put their hands together to make sure all of the concerns of did you do this, did you do that, we've done what we needed to do. We don't have to stress and belabor the point and go back and forth with anyone because they know what to do. We're not like the government of yesterday who put Prospect Ridge project in the office of the Prime Minister and didn't know where to start. And then had come Michael in the Department of Housing. That's confusion. That's confusion. Everything related to housing is under the Department of Housing because that's where the technical staff exists. They know what to do. I have a contact and representative from every single agency that is connected to the approvals that's needed, the environmental surveys that's needed, the building, the infrastructure, and from day one, you know what my team said? Minister, we need to call a meeting with all of them so that we can speak and tell them what your plans are and what the agenda is. We did that. Some of them was on Zoom because we were still in the midst of COVID. So from day one, we've been working together with every agency. We're not guessing at this because I am there as a manager of this government's blueprint. But the technical staff has been there throughout government. And they're so excited to finally be back to building houses. Because that's what their mandate is. When they signed up to work in government and be a part of the Department of Housing, they signed up to be a part of the story of Bahamians, building homes for Bahamians, not selling lots. And so when I walked in there and I said, we ain't selling lots, we building homes, they actually rejoiced, clapped, celebrated. Some of them probably didn't even vote for us. But I can tell you they can vote for us now because we're doing what we need to do to make a difference in this country. So why are you talking about who contract this here and who contract this there? Let's not forget that you gave $20 million in contracts for sidewalks in the heart of a pandemic, when persons were not working, when contractors were not building homes, were not making any money. All right? Nothing, right? And you talking about lots and selling. Every other Caribbean nation gets it. Everybody else. They know how important it is to present turnkey. That's why I shared the stories of what's happening in Jamaica, what's happening in Barbados, what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Nobody out here bragging about the government that sold the most lots. No. We're going to Luther in a couple of months, and they are overexcited to finally be a part of the Department of Housing, building homes for them. Yes, some of them may want to buy lots, but not everybody. They want the home completed. And you don't have to worry about timelines. You don't have to worry about who is responsible for fixing what. In my past career, I was an attorney. Okay, so I wasn't guessing when we were doing our contractual agreements and negotiations with the PPP partners. They have warranties embedded in their contracts that they must stick to and go and repair what needs to be repaired after the homeowners have moved in and purchased. We have warranties. We know what we're doing. We're not guessing at this. We want the best for our people. We want them to succeed, and we want them to feel like they own a piece of the rock. And so every area of this project, we have been double checking. Inside our Department of Housing now, you know what we say? Measure twice, cut once. Okay? So we doing what we have to do. I know all of y'all with y'all extracurricular degrees and who was qualified here and there everywhere. I don't know why you didn't use your architectural degree to draw your rendering for your poster for Prospect Ridge. Why you had to grab it off of Google? If you have all of these qualifications, everybody mouth was zip. When you was under the member of Kalani as your leader, your mouth was zip. No one remembered. They knew how to start things and sort things out. But all of a sudden, we have this advice. We don't need it because I'm using the technical staff, the public servants that exist, right? Who have the knowledge, who has the know-how, who has been doing this for umpteen years. Waiting to build homes. So thanks, but no thanks. We're getting it done, and we're getting it done under a New Day government, a Davis administration, and a team of members of parliament and ministers that believe in each other and want to see each other succeed. So that's what we're doing, and I'm excited to be a part of the team. Thank you all for your contributions. Thank you for your support. It is indeed a new day in the Department of Housing, and we are blessed to have this government serve the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the following resolution be agreed.
Sorry for that.
Whereas the Accountant General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, a corporation sole established and existing under and by virtue of Section 4 of the Ministry of Finance Act, Chapter 23, the Statute Law of the Bahamas Revised Edition of 2000, and continuing pursuant to Section 2, Section 10, and Section 131 of the Public Finance Management Act, 2021, is seized in fee, simple, and trust for Her Majesty and right of her government of the said Commonwealth of Public Purposes of Herodiums describes in the schedule hereunto. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 5(3)(a) of the said act, this House approves the conveyance by the Accountant General to the Minister responsible for housing of the said hereditaments normal fee of $10 and currency of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The resolution is agreed. Further resolutions. It has been moved and member statements. Appointments of select committees. Instructions to select committees. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
Mr. Deputy, I'd like to renew our notices in the name of the government.
Mr. Deputy, we renew all matters in the name of the opposition.
Adjournment.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that we adjourn to Monday, May 16th at 10 a.m. Monday, May 16th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
Monday, May 16th.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It's a long time. It has been moved and seconded that the House
Senate.
at its rising do adjourn to Monday, May 16th at 10 a.m. As many are in favor, remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Final adjournment.
Mr. Deputy, I now move that we adjourn to Monday, May 16th, 2022 at 10 a.m.
It has been moved and seconded that the House do now adjourn. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned until Monday, the 16th at 10 o'clock, 2022.
All rise.